Yeah, so, but also, two separate, totally separate issues, right? So we can, I guess technically we could ask about it, but we have to do the issues, correct? Yeah.
My daughter went today. She broke her leg over the summer in two places, and it's just not very but, you know, just when they went, my husband and I, and we got any questions, these things. She liked the shop.
All right, I have 6 o'clock on the dot. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the October 3rd Board of Supervisors meeting. Our chairman, Sean Walsh, is out of the country, so I will be filling in as vice chair tonight. And I would like to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you would join me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, just to remind everybody, the Township is live streaming this meeting on our YouTube channel, and you also may be audio and video recorded by third parties. I'm going to open the meeting with public comment. So if anyone in attendance has a question or a comment about something that's not on tonight's agenda, if you could just raise your hand.
Madam Vice Chair, just before we move to public comment, I just would like to note that the change in the meeting schedule was publicly advertised in the September 13th edition of the Daily Local News. As required, it was also posted on the Township website and in our e-newsletter.
All right, thanks, Chris. No public comment? All right. So we will move on to item number 4, presentation and discussion regarding a proposed zoning ordinance text amendment to permit an historic inn by conditional use in the R3B Flexible Design Conservation District Zone C. Chris, did you want to introduce this?
Yes. So before the Board of Supervisors this evening is a presentation regarding a proposed zoning ordinance text amendment in order to convert the existing Greystone Hall property into an historic inn. The proposal before the board involves the adaptive reuse of the existing mansion and carriage house into an inn complex, which would include rooms and suites, dining facilities, and I believe a spa is also included. There was a copy of the presentation materials, which will be presented shortly in the packet for the board, as well as a draft text amendment that's been prepared by the applicant. So the proposed text amendment that's before the board would amend the R3B Flexible Design Conservation District Zone C to permit this use by conditional use of the Board of Supervisors. Prior to tonight's meeting, the applicant presented before the Land Planning Committee on August 9th, who were in support of the concept. They also presented it to the Historical Commission at their meeting on August 25th, and the Planning Commission at their meeting on September 13th, where they recommended approval of the proposed zoning ordinance amendment.
All right, thanks very much. And I understand we have the applicant in attendance tonight that wants to make a presentation. Mr. Palagreco?
Yeah. Is this microphone on over here?
Yes, it is.
Luke Palagreco, on behalf of the applicant, Dean Jerahi and Steve Schatzberger, one of our participants in this application. We're going to walk through this fairly quickly. Dean is going to explain what you're seeing on the screen. This presentation has been shown maybe to even some of the members here of the board in the past. It's been shown to the Planning Commission. There have been a couple of resident meetings for the community actually out at Greystone. and you're seeing the same thing everyone else is seeing. So Chris, you stole my thunder. You teed it up perfectly, so I'm going to step aside now and let Dean walk through it, and then we'll talk about where we go from here afterwards. So Dean, you're going to run the slideshow together with Steve, I guess.
Okay. All right, thanks. I'm Dean Jirakian, and my grandfather bought this property, I don't know if you're familiar with it, in 1942, so 80 years it's been in our family now. And we are sort of looking for what the next chapter of this building is going to be. As many of you know, we've been running as a wedding venue for the last 30 years, and we've been taking care of it for 80 now. So the next, we've talked about going over a lot of different ideas within the family. What we've come up with help with some outside consultants like Steve, who mentioned, is this hotel concept, which you're seeing now. What you've heard is that we're looking to make it an upscale 4-star hotel. They have a fine dining room, which will, as we go through the slide, we'll see that, a spa. Just continue to have weddings there and have guest rooms. So, as I said, Steve is part of our team. He's a hotel consultant flown from Denver to help with us on this, and he's worked on high-end luxury boutique hotels all over the world. Not present, Terry Roche is another one of our consultants who used to be the chairman of the executive director of the Historic Hotels of America, which is a division of National Trust for Historic Preservation. So he's also helping us with finding the best way to preserve this property. And that's what my family is important to my family, who's 80 years. We want to keep it going another 80 at least. And Greg Powell is our architect. He's not here, and he's very well versed in adaptive reuses of buildings such as this. And he's come up with some ideas that we're going to show as we go through the slide. It's very illustrative. We're not planning to develop this ourselves. We're going to find the right partner who feels the same way about this building that we do, and that's part of what Steve and Terry are here to help us do. So this is, the view of the front of the house, and you can see it's set up for a wedding right now. I don't know who's controlling the slides, but is that you ready? Let's go through quickly, because I know we have a limited time. You got a busy agenda. This is what the property looked like in 1940. You can see there's this lawn out front. We're looking at the other side. There's basically two fronts of the building here. So we're looking at the front that looks across this lawn, and this was, trees have grown in since then, but basically we've preserved it as well as we can. Okay, right. Again, we'll just go through these quickly. These are just other views of the house. This is the carriage house, which is just down the hill from the main house. This is where we would put the spa and the casual dining restaurant. And we're seeing again more views of the house. Go ahead. And that's again on the right there. That's the lawn, which is where we think is really a key feature of the house. If you stand at the front of the house and look out, you're going to see that view of this lawn that continues down to the pergola at the end. Go ahead. Rick. Now on the left is the other view of the carriage house. Again, where the spa and the casual restaurant will be. Rick. Okay. Now we're going to look at some interiors. The top left is, and this is existing, how it looks today. And I don't know how many of you have been in the house. I think you've been there. Right? So the dining room is up in the top left, and there's the great hall on the top right, the palm room bottom right, and the library is the bottom left. And what we're thinking would make the fine dining room would be in what's currently the library, and up above in the dining room would be a breakfast room. Continue. So this is a plan for what we think the ground floor of a hotel would look like. So you've got, again, the dining room, reception area, breakfast room, there's a bar, there's a kitchen, there's a fitness facility there. Okay, next slide. And the second floor, like I said, we're going to try to preserve this as well as possible. So all those bedrooms are located in existing bedrooms. No walls would be moved. There have to be some additions of bathroom and sprinklers and things like that, but we're going to not move any walls to the extent we can. Okay. And then the third floor, we can add some additional bedrooms up there. I don't know if anybody's been up on the third floor. There's a bowling alley up there currently that we're going to try to incorporate in some way to keep that there. Okay. These are on the left are two of the existing bedrooms. What I didn't mention, I don't know, I've said it so many times, I can't remember who I've said it to or not, but the house was built in 1907 by P.M. Sharpless, who was an inventor based in Westchester. And the architect was Charles Barton Keene, who's done a lot of well-known houses up and down the East Coast, including Ronaldo in Winston-Salem. So every room is really unique, and we've kept it again as well as we could from the original. So the top left is Mr. Sharpless's room, and then the bottom left is another bedroom, and then on the right side we're showing what, as a hotel, it might look like. Okay. And what we've also tried to be sensitive of is the room we have to work with. So on the top left, we're looking at the house and the lawn. That's that green area, and we think it's important to preserve that lawn because that was important in the architect's original plan. The top right shows the current tree coverage on the site. The bottom left is steep slopes, and then the bottom right is restrictions for existing setbacks, buffers, and restricted open space that is further restriction to the plan. So now we're this one, you show the orange is what we're left with that we can, under the current, under the current site plan, build on. And so to make this work as it is, there's going to have to be some additional buildings built, and so we're going to make them fit into that orange space. Okay. So one idea that we came up with, and this is again just illustrative, is to put some units down off the lawn there, and then have something up on the right side. There's the carriage house, and across the carriage house is sort of a mirror image, slightly funhouse mirror image of the carriage house, a little bit bigger. So you can see that can get us to a point where the hotel becomes really financially viable and sustainable, and it has very little impact on the land and the surrounding area. Next. This is a sort of overhead view of what the lawn units would look like. Go ahead. And these are our renderings of what those buildings might look like. Go ahead. That's up close. Continue. Now this is the mirror of the carriage house. Again, we have the spa and the casual restaurant on the right, and then the guest rooms on the left side. Okay. And that's again a rendering of what that building might look like. Okay. That's they match up the new building so much. The carriage house, I can't really tell them apart when I look at them, but that's the new building. The next one should be the existing. So that's the existing building. Okay. That's the plan of the new building. Continue. And these are again more photos of what we're envisioning this will look like. So what we're really going for is something very upscale, and as nice as we can possibly make it. Really. Go ahead. And then this is the carriage house from the other side. And what we're trying to do here is make this carriage house accessible to the existing community. There'll be walking trails coming in from the existing community in hopes that they'll utilize the restaurant and the spa services there, and enjoy that space there as their own. I think that's it for the presentation. Yeah. So I went faster than I thought I would, but any questions?
Yeah, that was pretty concise. Thank you. So, does the board have any questions or comments at this time?
I had a couple. As far as the sewer needs, what is that going to be? Is that going to be increased or changed or already?
I'm pretty sure we have coverage for that now. I think we had enough when we. But I'm going to lose nodding, so I'm going to let him answer this.
Going to look up the capacity issue. We vetted there's sufficient capacity to handle the sewage needs. Obviously, there's not public sewer available for 60 keys right now, or 60 rooms, but there will be.
Okay, so that's part of the plan.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Sewer and water, yeah.
Okay. Did you have anything to add to that, Dave?
No.
Okay. Is there going to be an alcohol license? I presume
There would need to be, yes. I mean, I don't know whether, well, let me take a step back on that. I assume, how do you run your current wedding venues? Do you use a license for the Greystone, or do they have a caterer that brings in?
Yes.
The guests bring their
They
own.
don't need a license for that, but I do believe any hotel user would need a license.
We have to secure a license.
And that's a separate, like, that's a hotel license
Right.
versus a restaurant.
Right. And then I had a question just regarding the ordinance, or so this is a legal question. On the second page of the ordinance, it indicated that maximum number of restrooms minimum lot, I'm sorry, C6.
60, right?
It says that maximum building height is 2 stories, not to exceed 35 feet. I thought this was 3 stories and more than 35 feet.
The existing building is 3 stories.
They're
The
talking
new
about the
building.
new building, you know. This would only apply to new building.
This ordinance would only apply to new buildings?
Yeah,
Okay.
because
So
existing
that's
buildings
only
exist.
2 stories and a maximum of 35? Okay. That was not clear on that. And I guess the heat, what's the heat going to be in the new buildings? Is it going to be, do you have natural gas there?
There's no natural gas, so it would either be propane or oil.
Is that what you have now, oil building?
We have oil and, like I say, quickly propane.
Okay.
It's interesting, we couldn't, even with all the residential, we couldn't get PECO to bring natural gas to the property, which was surprising to me, but there was major infrastructure problems with doing that, and it just didn't pay for itself.
Okay, so I guess your tanks are going to be above ground if they have oil?
They're current, I mean, well, I don't know what the new buildings will be, that'll be sort of, you know, like I said, that'll be done. Currently, I think they're inside the building.
Okay, so there are no underground storage tanks there right now on the property?
I don't think so, I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think there are, I think they're inside.
How did you do it for the new dwelling? Did you do propane
Propane.
areas? Yeah.
It's underground propane tanks, right?
For the
Okay.
residential units, get propane.
But I thought it was above ground, no?
No, I think they're
They
buried.
were in, for the clusters, that there was,
They're all buried.
they're buried, okay, but there is a community system, it's not one per each.
No, the 65 or 55 plus, the carriage ones are clustered, but the single families are.
Right, that's what I meant, so I'm sorry.
That's all the questions I have.
I have a couple of questions. There were a number of issues raised by the Andrea Testa, our fire marshal. Will there be adequate fire department access in and out of this facility that's being proposed?
Yeah, there's plenty of space now. I mean, that's a land development detail, but I know the architects have asked a lot of questions about that.
Yeah, they'll be asking that question.
Oh, yeah. No, they're on top of that. And as the process goes forward, I would expect in a conditional use proceeding, if you enact the ordinance, that there'd probably be a fire safety plan presented at that time,
Yep.
you know, for access to and from the
There's
buildings.
currently 2 ways into the property, I think there's a third emergency that's planned from 322.
It'd just be a question of whether or not to be adequate radius to be able to move the EMS and fire vehicles through the property. Again, it would be a conditional use. Also would be fire hydrants would be required around the grounds about every 100 feet or so. So that'll be another issue that'll be raised. And also the halls will no longer be grandfathered, and therefore the alteration and addition will require sprinklers throughout all the properties. So you have to be aware of that.
Yes.
Now, other questions I have. Is this area here, is it currently on a historical registry like the United States government or anything like that?
It's
Not for, it's eligible to be on the National Registry. It is not on the National Registry. It's on some survey that you have done as a township in which the county has adopted, but on a national list, it's not been listed on the National Registry, but it's believed to be, I know it is, it's eligible to be on the National Registry.
So currently now it's not required according to U.S. government registry requirements to
No.
meet certain standards. Okay.
And in fact, that's something that was brought up, and it was a good comment by the Planning Commission, or maybe it was the Land Planning Committee, about there may be benefits to having it certified and registered from a tax perspective. So a prospective, you know, user of this or owner of this after the family, I think is going to be looking long and hard about that. There could be benefits to having it as a certified historic structure.
The property is documented on the Township's Historic Resource Atlas. That's part of the Township's comprehensive
Right.
plan.
But not on the U.S. registry.
No, it is not.
Next question I have is on the carriage house, which is existing, and the guest suites which will be built across from it. Is that in an area designated to be dedicated to the township? Is it, in other words, is it part of the 160 acres that should be dedicated to the township?
No, and in fact, Rick, if you wanted to go back to that plan that showed the easements and everything, you'll see very clearly how we've stayed clear of any deed restricted open space on the property. Right there. All that hatching that's vertical is deed restricted open space. Both on,
Not to be dedicated.
not to be dedicated, it was never to be dedicated. It was to be deed restricted as open space and maintained by the owner, and that will continue. That was done when the residential subdivision was approved. But, so that really makes this 45-acre site, 46-acre site. The purpose of this whole exhibit is to show all the other limitations. You know, you have deed restricted open space, you have buffer area around the perimeter of the tract, you have one of the other exhibits shows steep slope areas. So you're really confined in the area that you can actually, place new structures.
Are there any stormwater engineering plans in place for the new area to be constructed?
Not yet, no. I mean, since no land development was contemplated at the time this plan was shown, no, there's no stormwater, but there's ample places to put it. There's a lot of parking on the property, it might be underneath the parking, but that'll all have to be determined, whether it's underground or above ground storage, which not many people do anymore.
So while we have this pulled up, I just have a couple questions. So these properties over here on the right, how far is that between, let's say, is that the carriage house or is that the building that looks like the carriage house?
That's the existing carriage house.
Okay, so how far are we talking between getting from some of these properties to, you said there's going to be trail access or some kind of walking trail back there?
So those buffers add up to 200 feet. So that's 100, that's 100. The trail will come in here. So along this existing driveway, the trail will come in. So those people, to get there, they would go out and come back in there.
Okay.
So it looks like you're about 400 feet from those dwellings.
Yeah.
They're each about 100.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so since you're up, where's the access to the actual, where's the driveway that goes into the actual?
So this is the main driveway in here. And this is sort of the formal entrance, and that'd be the service entrance. And then there's an emergency entrance back by this garage. I think it's around here now. There.
Okay. So just a couple more questions. So you said that there's going to be additional buildings, these cottages that you're talking about constructing near the lawn area.
Well, we've sort of shown that as an illustration, like that's where it could be. Somebody else might choose to put somewhere else, but it'll be in that orange space. So that's the idea that we had. That we think is a nice idea, but somebody might come along and say, I'd rather have them, going along this road.
Right.
But that'll be part of the development process.
So just for clarification, and this is the carriage house here, correct? And this is the guest suites proposing to be built. Is there any claim of the homeowners association of Greystone in that particular piece of property?
No.
Okay.
No, on the existing carriage house, way back in 2009, when the conditional use order was first drafted, we thought that carriage house might serve as a recreational facility for the adult community. NV came along and took a look at it and said, we'd rather build our own recreational facility, thank you. And that's what you see out there now, obviously a more modern facility. We are committed to the adaptive reuse of that carriage house, and that's why you're seeing this proposal in front of you now, to have it as a pub, for want of a better term, and spa. So yeah, one time it was going to, we thought, the family thought, that might serve as a good facility, because we wanted to keep it, we didn't know what to put in it. We didn't want to tear it down. It made sense to see if you could use it for recreational facilities, but by the time you retrofit a building like that, and the residents want modern facilities, it sounds like a good idea, but they don't want to, so NV built their own recreational facility.
And also in the active adult sections. The active adult section is, couple hundred yards away from it. It's across Aram Avenue from that and up further. So they wanted it in the heart of their section rather than down here. So a bunch of reasons they didn't want it.
So were any mid funds or developer funds used to do any infrastructure changes or upgrades to the carriage house?
No, I don't.
Okay.
It's a rumor that got started, but no. It's interesting. The big manor house is not part of the NID. It has nothing to do with the NID. That carriage house was included in the NID at the time because it was thought that that would be part of the community. So the carriage house would be, Dean and I were talking about this earlier, they'll be paying the NID assessment, whatever it is, but they are part of the NID. The only NID funds that were going to be used, by the way, as you know, they can only be used for public improvements. The only funding that was going to be used was to extend water or sewer lines to it. But that has not been done.
So that never happened?
Hasn't happened yet, no. And Aqua, based on what I saw a couple of days ago, Aqua will not bring public water to the property until somebody has a real plan. That's not to say eventually it won't happen, but that's the extent of NID involvement with all of this. It's that little carriage house, and it can only be used for public improvements.
I just have one last question. Just out of curiosity, you're going to have like a little museum, some part of this whole complex about the history of this particular property. It's got quite a storied history to it.
I have this. My family's really been committed to my family's really committed to promoting the history and talking about the history. So there are currently, posters up in the house about it, and we're hoping that any new, owner is going to talk about it. And I think that Steve would probably say that's part of the beauty of this project is that it does have a history. It's not building a new, what you say, not just building a new hotel.
Right.
We're embracing history.
Yeah, and we developed this, and this plan that's before you was for that purpose, to maintain this, the character, integrity. We're looking for a trustee of a historic place to own and operate this. Very much part of the plan.
So of course I've heard from a couple of residents that they have a concern about the traffic. People that live in Greystone that just moved in. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, we had traffic planning design who did the planning for the big development and has been doing it for the last 10 years. They took a look at it. There was traffic projections made at the time for the wedding use that was presently going on there. So that was baked into the current traffic improvements that have already been done around the community. So what we're looking at here is, that's fine, yeah. What we're looking at
what they say.
No, thank you.
is the additional traffic generated by 60 guest rooms, which is negligible. They looked at it and said it wouldn't involve, certainly wouldn't involve any new PennDOT improvements. Aram Avenue is certainly big enough to handle the limited traffic that would come from 60 guest rooms. It's a small generator. So, yeah, we anticipated that, and again, if it moves forward at the time of the conditional use hearing, there'll be a traffic report presented, and if somebody disagrees with our conclusions, we can hash it out at that time. But we're not contemplating redoing any of those improvements that have already been installed. They're working really well.
Okay, so does the board have any other questions or comments? All right, I'm going to open it up to the public. Does the public have any questions or comments? Yep, done.
And Rick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, this came up at the Planning Commission back in 2009 with the original conditional use order for the overall subdivision. There is a statement in there that says that the carriage house shall be used as the recreational facility, but since NV doesn't want to use it, does that choice by the developer to not use the carriage house sort of nullify that statement in the conditional use, or do you have to go through a sort of a formal process to change that conditional use to say, okay, this is amended, it doesn't have to be used as originally required?
What we're going to do, if this goes forward, when the conditional use for this development comes on board, there'd be a provision to amend that original conditional use decision to substitute the use.
Okay, so
Can I answer your question? Okay. All right. There's no other questions from the public. Yes, we're looking for a motion.
So the next step in this process would be to send the proposed ordinance in its final version to the Chester County Planning Commission and schedule a public hearing for possible adoption. This is gone through our planning commission, but not the county.
Okay. And we need a motion for that, correct?
Technically, no. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. But so if the board's amenable with the ordinance as proposed, you could just direct staff to send it to the county planning commission for review and comment.
Okay, the board is amenable to send to the county planning commission? Yes? Okay.
And would you be setting the hearing date now? Because we have consultants that we got to book flights in.
So they have 30 days under the MPC in which to review it. We'll get it up to their office tomorrow. We would probably, I'm saying we would probably set the hearing for the first meeting of December is what I'm thinking. Just because of the advertising requirements that
I think that's the 11th, if I'm not mistaken. But I can check this out.
the 7th. First meeting of December is December 7th.
Oh, December?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I'm just thinking if they have 30 days, if we don't get comments back until November 4th, they get authorized for advertisement on November 15th. And then we'd advertise it 2 successive weeks, probably the first one.
Do you want to do the ordinance separate from conditional use? Sometimes you can combine them and not render a decision on the conditional use until the ordinance is done. Because really, the ordinance, the meat of what you want to know is going to come from conditional use hearing. So I know I've done that before. I don't know.
I would prefer, if you don't mind, to do the ordinance and then the condition, because right now we're in the market for the person who's really going to be able to stand up here and tell you how it's going to operate, the nitty-gritty details that you're going to want. But we can't even get them, in this market, they'll pay real attention if the ordinance is in place. Right now, they're, throwing darts against the wall. It's just a dream right now. And the level of detail that you want, and I know the planning commission wants, is better going to be provided by the real operator.
Do you have some operators right now that are interested currently?
Without naming operators, do you have some?
We do.
Okay.
And there's quite a bit of interest.
And hopefully a conditional use will probably go out sometime after the first of the year. And this is moving pretty good right now.
So we'll send this to the Chester County Planning Commission for review and comment.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Have a good night. Thank you. All right, so moving on, agenda item number 5 is going to be deferred, I think, until our October 18th meeting.
That is correct.
Okay, so we will skip number 5. Number 6 is discussion and possible approval of a final land development plan for a 10,000 square foot building addition and an 18,900 square foot flex building at 1035 Saunders Lane for Blue Mountain Construction.
Is there someone here representing the applicant? Okay. So this is a really simple plan change. This entire plan was approved before and is currently under construction. And while it was under construction, it was found that the proposed driveway, secondary driveway access for here could not be done because of easement restrictions here. So the driveway's been moved to here. So in a nutshell, the only change to this plan is to move the driveway from here to here. And that's the scope of work of the plan. There's no stormwater changes, there's no changes to any facilities on the site other than the driveway access.
This was presented not long ago, right?
I'm sorry?
Wasn't this presented not long ago?
The original?
Yeah.
Yeah, about a year ago.
Was it a year?
Give or take.
Okay, any comments or questions?
No. There's another one right down the street from it that's being proposed too. That's the one that's just approved.
Okay.
I'll make a motion we approve this.
All right, John's made the motion. Do we have a second? All right, thank you, Tina. Any public comment? No? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Thank you very much. Moving on to number 7. Discussion and possible approval of a final land development plan for a 51,200 square foot warehouse building at 800 East Virginia Avenue for 920 South Bolmar Associates LP.
And Andy Everwine is here representing E.B. Walsh, the engineer. Andy, you want to go through?
Well, unless you want.
You can do it if you want.
You did such a good job at it.
Good evening, Andy Everwine from Edward V. Walsh and Associates. We're the civil engineering company who prepared the plans for Balmar Associates. The plan that's before you tonight is a culmination of about a year and a half's worth of work that we've gone through the process, and they're proposing to build, it's not going to work, now it is, a 51,000 or plus change warehouse building on the back of the property, widen, reconstruct, and provide sidewalk along Kimes to provide access to that facility. They're going to provide sidewalk along Lincoln, Virginia, and all the frontages of the property in accordance with the ordinance as part of this process. We have received their NPDES permit approvals, our Chester County Conservation District approvals. We have the planning model waivers in place. All permits are in place. The last hurdle was with the township. So the stormwater will be 2 basins underground. There's a big facility located in this area and a big facility back here. Both of them will infiltrate and meet the requirements of the Pennsylvania DNP manuals and the township ordinances as well. In a nutshell, that's pretty much what it is.
And the project has been reviewed by the Township Planning Commission and recommended for approval.
And what is going to be stored in the warehouse?
They don't have a user, they don't have really anybody, but it's to get approved so that they can get somebody in there. I don't think they have anybody in mind at this point, but it won't be. It'll just be. I would think big boxing things is there's nothing going to be manufactured back there. It's strictly going to be a warehouse facility.
Any other questions by the board?
Yeah, I have a question. This is Kimes here, is it not?
That is,
And that's going to be expanded right now?
yes, it'll be widened to 24 feet with a curb on both on the side closest to Schramm. Will preserve the bituminous curb and the properties next to it on the which will be the south side of that plan, and it'll be widened out sidewalk on the Schramm side.
So this is the sidewalk here?
Yes.
I'm particularly concerned about that roadway here in front of these properties here. They're very close to the existing roadway. It would make more sense, wouldn't it, to have this sidewalk where the houses are located to give a better buffer between them and the expanded roadway?
The reason we didn't do that is because we have to tie into the existing grades and facilities located along the frontage of those properties. And if I introduce a sidewalk, it's going to change all that. And we wouldn't be able to do that without having disturbance to their properties. This way we can preserve their access to the street, build the roadway, allow the road to come in, and their access would be provided to that. Their access would be maintained during the entire construction process. If we switch it, it's going to change all that.
And this is the sidewalk here that goes out along Lincoln?
Yes.
Ties into it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the board? Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
We're the homeowners on that street.
Yeah, let me just get a second, and then I'll open it up. Is there a second?
Yeah, a second.
All right.
All right.
Go ahead. Can I have your name for the record?
I'm Christopher Wallace, and my wife Victoria Wallace. Yeah, go ahead.
So there's all of 4 of us that live on the street. As you come in, it is only literally 1 car length to drive up.
Car width wise.
The bottom is a floral company, so they have in and out access on their own. They own the property above, which also shares that long Kimes Avenue. Then there's us, and then the older gentleman, Jim, who has been here before. Our son, who is 13, walks down that driveway to his bus every day. Our eldest is away at college right now. But the access, like construction-wise, trying to figure out us getting in and out with them doing work is the problem, because there's no back road. It just goes down like the lawn, and then it drops, and then it's the floral company, but there's no way for us to get up and down with them doing work.
Currently, there's a fence here, and that's just a dead end, basically. So we have no, when Aqua came up and added new water line up, we were we couldn't get to our house for almost a week straight, which it was dead of winter. So this is the kind of stuff we worry about.
Yeah.
Also, all our power, our internet, all that stuff is on this side of Kimes Avenue, on telephone poles. I understand that I'm sure there's a plan to do that, but there's going to be a time where we don't have any of that. I mean, there's no way to tie in one day. Like, I don't see that be like a snap judgment type of thing. There's a lot of moving variables that
It took about 3 weeks for them to rip up the driveway as they were putting new piping in. And not even that, it's more also emergency purposes. Like, I suffer from migraines and certain illnesses. Besides my son just trying to walk down the street. I mean, we have 4 people together, and even at times I'm kind of like, can you slow down a little bit? Because he's 13. You know, he's as smart as can be, but again, he's 13. So, even just, him crossing the street to the bus, even that makes me worry, because there's, down at the hill, there's a company, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name, but they have trucks that park, and I actually had spoken with an officer, Verglio, who's been just so sweet, and he notified them that the trucks can't park out front because the bus comes on the other side as well, on their right side, and cars try to zoom around. There's a lot of chaos happening, but we're just trying to figure out how to get to and from work and emergency purposes, because it's like we could walk 3 of us together, but there's no sharing that road. Like, one of us usually, like, Jim's coming down, we're just starting, we'll just back out for him to come down. I'm just trying to understand that and more or less the safety of my son.
So where do you live on this map?
We're the second to the last house.
We're this property here. There's a landscaping company that's behind us, so there's no way for us to get out behind us. And really, that's our only.
Your only way in and out
is right up and down this, and it's literally a car wide. So.
Is it a private street?
It's a private street.
It's an ave,
And who's on either side of you?
James, who's here with us last time, lives here, and the people that own this property also, and rented out to another.
The second house, they go through that long driveway. They don't. The only bottom house is the only one that has their own entrance.
Yeah, this house has a driveway
so you guys
here.
have a private easement to use that.
Correct.
Yeah, we didn't know that when we had bought the house. We were looking
We just
for
thought it
better
was-
schools for our kids, and we had bought our first house. And
so do you have a copy of your easement agreement by any chance?
I don't, but I do have. I have it on. It's on the deed.
Yeah, I mean, it would be helpful for you to have that, so that, because it probably hopefully spells out your rights.
Yeah, it says 15 feet, wide drive.
But like the road comes straight to our grass, from the grass to the fence. So when you're picturing that small area, it's that small. So I'm just trying to understand for the construction and the safety of it. And like, if my kids were older, like significantly older, I really wouldn't, mind. But again, I have a middle schooler. I have a lot of that, like my
There's
concern.
actually 4 homes that are affected by that.
Yes.
2 homes
Yes.
and 2 businesses.
Yeah.
But
Well,
they
no,
have
there's
access on the end.
The bottom, the floor.
So there's a home here.
Right,
There's a home here, here, and here.
right, and the other one has its own access. And
Right.
Yeah.
3 home buildings that are affected.
The first one owns the second one right above it.
Okay, Amy said you wanted to have some sort of.
We actually know that they have access there, and the design is for that road to remain open and the road to widen to be constructed from the Schramm side of the property. They will not be disturbing their property until they have to mill and overlay the roadway at the end. We purposefully separated sewer, we purposely separated water. All the facilities are separate from there, so they're not disturbed. The electric poles will be relocated first. There might be an hour or two. It doesn't take long to tie a new electric service in from a pole, as long as it's there and in the ground. It really is, it's an hour-long, 2-hour-long process. It's not days. We know they have to provide access. They have to have access in and out. The intention is to leave that alone, and the plans are designed to leave that so that they can continue to get access to their property during construction. We fenced, we won't be able to get over to where the construction is until we have to tie it, and then they'll mill it, and they'll overlay the roadway, and then they'll have a 24-foot wide road with the sidewalk on the other side to utilize instead of a 10-foot parkway. It's a very small road, I agree with you very much.
So with the busyness now, with the traffic going back and forth, my kid has to cross to the other sidewalk to safely walk down.
We're just worried that
That's
when
my
we
biggest
originally
concern.
told this plan, it was going to be 130 some cars a day, and apparently that's not the case. It's apparently there's 130 some parking places, but at the same time we don't know. Like that, we never heard anything from the owner or anything the entire time. We'd call, leave messages. No, you would never.
So tell me about this road. Is it two cars can fit on the road? Is
No.
it in
No,
and
I
out?
actually
One
made
in, one out?
The new road or the existing road? The existing road, no, one car.
The existing road is one car.
Yes, it's
The
narrow.
new lane, the new road is going to allow two cars.
The new road will be designed to the width that is required by the township as if it was a street. So
And what
it'll be
you're
24
saying
feet.
is the part that's being constructed to widen the road is going to be fenced off, and they're still going to have access to the existing road.
That's right. We will not take their, we cannot build this and cut off their access. It's just,
The
it's just
existing
not
road isn't going to be
legal
shut
or
down.
practical.
The existing road won't be shut down. You'll still be able to come in and out. It's just that
Mhm.
there's going to be a widening of the road beyond that. And now the other issue that you're concerned about is the electrical poles and the internet and everything else. And
Yeah.
you said last time there was construction, you were without power?
So our kids were
Not
zooming
like-
at the time
yeah.
when they were bringing the trucks up and down, minus the crazy loudness when they were trying to dig, when the kids were zooming. A lot of the times like the Zoom had glitches that everyone was working with, but we would have to let them know more that it was construction because they would literally shake everything. So I don't know if that was something they had touched or they had cut for a short period of time, because the guys were very nice, the construction gentlemen, but I didn't talk to them that much. I was, kind of lost.
We're just worried about things that could happen. Look, I'm okay with a road being there, a wider road, but it sucks that we have a little tiny road. But I mean, at the same time, we're used to have 3 cars going up and down the street. Then now we'll have 50 to 100, maybe. I can't see that many, but
Is that true?
I have no idea. So,
There's probably going to be more if it's full. The parking you
tractor
see,
trailers,
There's
stuff
no
like
other
that.
access to the warehouse on this side? Is that the only?
well,
other?
there's access through the Shram property for the trucks if they want to use that way. There is access in the back, and it all ties in where the concrete is in the back. Hopefully this thing works.
We're just worried. We're worried that like tractor trailers are going to be coming up and down our street. All this nonsense. It's already bad enough. Like the metallurgy company that's across the street, across Lincoln. That's what she was talking about. Blocks up Lincoln alone.
It's the bus they block, and it can cause an accident.
Not even just the bus, just the road. Period. They block the road constantly.
Well, can we mandate that they have another access, all the trucks and everything, have another access road to enter versus?
They do have other means of access in and out of the
I'm
property.
saying mandate. They have other ways as part of.
You can do
the
whatever you
contract.
like. I won't.
I don't think that's necessarily true, that we can do whatever we like.
No.
Well, within the ordinances, I'm sorry.
One of the comments from the planning commission talked about wanting to make sure that the road was wide enough to allow trucks to adequately be able to turn around.
Yes.
For EMS.
No, the EMS, it's built to the township standards. The roadway will
Well,
be,
actually, it's not. Minimum township standard is 28-foot width.
I'm sorry, then I stand corrected.
So they need a
I
waiver
thought
to
it
go
was-
to 24.
No, it's a
No,
private
it's not a private
drive.
street,
It's a
it's
private
driveway.
private
But I guess
driveway.
that's the point we're asking. If it's a private street, do we allow private streets to be utilized in this capacity to go to a warehouse building?
It's a driveway,
It's a
Krista. It's not a street.
It's been used as a private street, but in this case, it's a driveway. And it does meet the minimum driveway criteria. in the code.
But would the applicant agree to restrict and not have truck traffic come through that driveway just to alleviate some concerns for? That's the question. I mean, I don't know sitting here tonight whether from a code perspective we can stop it.
I'm the applicant's engineer. I'm not the applicant, so I don't have an answer to that question without
Well,
asking.
and I'm neither one, but if you look at the alternate means of access, they're very circuitous.
Yes.
So I would tend to believe that the applicant is not going to be amenable to that.
I would agree with Rick, but I don't want to speak for him.
And you're talking, like, so Lincoln's only, what, 30 feet wide, maybe a little more than that. I don't know, but turning, tractor trailers, turning here, going to be cutting this corner, there's a big giant, oak tree there.
And how long is this construction planning to take?
I would think this construction would take about 6 months.
Yeah, that's a long time.
The other question I had was, along our frontages, right? Like we were kind of worried about like water, right? There's a lot of ground here now, so any water that might come down this, coming into our property or whatever, like I don't know, like they were saying at one point there was going to be a curb put all the way down. I don't know. I'm just asking questions because need to know what we have to worry about.
The road is designed so that the stormwater from the roadway is pitched toward the other side. It's not ground, it's super elevated. So there won't be water coming toward their property. The high point's going to be along their property. So any stormwater that hits there will run over to the drainage system that we're constructing along the roadway on the other side and a stormwater management facility within the roadway halfway up. The water from the site can't get over there, it goes the other direction.
So this will be sloped towards the sidewalk area?
Yes.
So question real quick, I know this is kind of, but the road, like Kimes what we're at, when you guys are saying it won't be more or less touched while you're making the other side of the road, are you guys still driving up and down that road with the trucks to create the other side?
No, not at all. In fact, it has to be built from the other side.
So will the fence remain there until it's...
The fence will remain until they have to tie into your roadway, yes. All construction will take place on the other side. The fence will stay in place. The last thing that gets taken out is the fence so they can tie the roads together.
How long of a process would that be to tie it in? Because then again, that has to do with like the electrical and water.
Well, no, the water and sewer will be in before that. And so the electrical tie-in could happen before that as well because the telephone poles will have to be relocated first. So they'll put new poles in. And then they'll relocate, they'll run string of new wires, tie it in, and then they can make the connection. They can't remove the existing poles and the existing electric until they do that. So that connection happens ahead of time. So the road being tied in is the last step, probably a week.
So do you anticipate tractor trailers coming down this road to enter warehouse?
I think there will be some tractor trailers on that road, yes.
And do you think that the road width is sufficient and the design as it's presented is going to be able to accommodate tractor trailers for that kind of traffic?
The driveway width is in accordance with our code and can provide 2 12-foot lanes, which is sufficient for truck traffic.
Is there truck traffic today going down that road?
No.
No, it's way too narrow right now.
3 cars.
I think we almost have to get the applicant in here to answer some questions and to accommodate the residents in that area, those 3 buildings, as far as traffic and entryway.
Well, we did do a traffic study and submitted it back when we started the process. I didn't, my company did. It was done by a traffic engineer. Again, if you want to table this and have the applicant come in and answer the questions, I'm perfectly amenable to that. I mean, we're trying to do what's right. This does meet your code. We are in accordance with your zoning. We are in accordance with your rules and regulations. And, from that regard, I think we're good. If there's other issues that, or you have concerns about, I can't answer those questions.
Well, I also want to do what's right for the residents.
I understand.
That's their home, they live there, they have a right to their privacy, and I think they have a right to answer questions to be answered.
I truly understand that.
I appreciate you're following the code and following everything that needs to be done, but I'm also concerned about the residents.
Well, where are we on the MPC clock? Because without an extension, I don't know if we need an extension.
I don't either.
No, it was waived.
It
was waived way back when
it
it
was
was
waived.
waived.
We don't need
Because of
an
COVID, there was
Yeah, it
no
was waived.
extension, there's no time.
So what I would suggest is that if the actual owner, and I know you're going to, he's voice, could meet the property owners and just sort of alleviate
We've
some of
tried,
their
we've
concerns.
tried for at least a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of the neighbors.
Because Aqua came through and put a new, water in, and they were going to repave our entire street, which was awesome, because we and the owner next to us, who's been taking care of the street for the last 30 years, plowing it, and that's another thing we got to worry about, like, who takes care of that stuff? These are kind of
That's a good
things,
question. Who does that?
like,
It's a private street, so.
yeah.
Because he was
So now
doing it
we're
for many years.
gonna, yeah, me and my neighbor, we've been taking care of it, and
Well, that's why the
Fill
easement
potholes, all that
spell
stuff.
it out. The easement document should spell it out.
but it really doesn't, that's the sad part. Like, because I think this property was owned by one person, and they just divvied it up real quick, and they kind of just said, easement for this, because it's one line in our deed.
Let's be clear, the property is on the Schramm property. It's the property is owned by Schramm.
Correct.
You guys have the rights of access in and out of it, and I guess the rights to maintain your utilities. I haven't seen the actual physical easement language as well. So what we're trying to do is maintain that access and maintain those rights, and also widen this so that we can construct in the back. In the end result is going to be a safer and better road with a sidewalk for them to use.
If the sidewalks on the other
That
side
will
of the
be
street from
owned,
their
that will be
building.
maintained by these guys, not the property owners, by Schramm.
Safety of
Why
our
don't they
kid crossing
maintain the road
though.
then?
They
There's
don't-
no access, it's cut off by a fence back there. I don't know why it was built the way it was or why it stopped the way it was. Historically, I don't have an answer to that. But it's always been on this property, it's been there. The industrial property has been there for 80 years.
So does the board want to ask the applicant to come in and answer some questions that we might have?
Yes, I think the residents should be here, whoever the other, you and maybe the other two
Yes.
buildings, if they can be here, and if you have concerns, I think we should voice them at that time.
Does that work for you?
But I also
Yeah.
think before that, if the applicant, if Andy could take back to the applicant that, like, a meeting on site to talk through logistically the construction issues, because a lot of what you're saying are concerns about the construction process, how it's going to impact them.
Yeah.
Get your questions together,
Yeah.
and meet with them, and then we can have a meeting back here with the board.
Yeah, we're just trying to get down to all the little details.
Yeah, the
It
nitty-gritty.
seems to me one of the biggest problems here is just a lack of communication.
Yeah.
So we can establish that means of community, that venue there.
And
And I think that will solve a lot of the problems here.
Yeah.
Yeah, our neighbor is very opposed to it, like completely, he's like freaking out, and he's sick right now, so that's why he's not here, but he was worried.
Well, the phone calls, him kind of not calling us back, and he
Yeah.
would leave messages.
Who are you calling?
I guess the owner. We don't know who.
Eli Khan, is
Yeah.
his name, we were told is the owner of that property.
It's very uncharacteristic.
It is very uncharacteristic of him. And,
I will take that back to my client,
Okay.
tell him what you guys, we talked about, and
Do you have
let that
that,
proceed
can you
that
please
way.
leave
I will-
Andy your
Did
information?
you get his card from him?
Yeah.
Did you facilitate a meeting with these folks?
I will talk to my client, have my client facilitate the
Okay.
meeting.
Our information, so you can.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want to meet up with us. How other way would we get together
Spell it
to?
out.
Well, they're going to facilitate the
They're gonna
meeting
try to
for
facilitate
you to meet on site with
Okay.
the
If
applicant.
for some reason that doesn't work out, for whatever reason, I still think that it's the board wants to request that the applicant be here in person, and so you could be here the night that the applicant isn't here.
So iron out all your questions and issues on site, and then anything that's not clear to you or that you still have concerns about, we'll address it here in a public meeting.
Can I ask that we get placed on the next agenda, so that this doesn't
October 18th.
labor?
From Wall Street.
I don't know what your schedule is on this one, but I'm asking that.
2 weeks from tomorrow.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And if there's an issue, I'll have them notify you guys.
Let's just check and see what's on the agenda.
Okay. All right.
I don't see it.
Thank you.
Okay, we can do it on the 18th.
Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
These are public record, these plans.
Yes.
They're kind of hard to read.
Yeah, no.
It's on the website. The largest, which copies are, you'd have to submit a right to know request to the township to get a copy. This way there, if you did, you'd be able to look at them.
Yeah.
Get a better
No,
idea.
we were able to look over the plans and stuff like that, and I know the plans had been amended since we even saw them, where they moved the parking lot away from our neighbor's property a little bit, and I know there's some things that we're...
I'm just saying, you do have a right to have a copy, but you would have to submit a right to know. You can do that by submitting it to the
We can't
township.
make a copy.
We cannot make a copy of it, they're copyrighted.
The copyright.
The copy.
They can
Unless Andy allows
Oh,
them.
they can view it.
Yeah, we can view it, yeah, that's what I was...
I'll ask my client, I don't have a problem with it personally, and my company will make them, but I have to ask my client because he's my client.
And like I said, this doesn't sound typical of this developer, that he wouldn't try to meet with you and
Yeah,
work
that's-
through your issues.
and
I
that's-
mean, it makes his life easier if he upfront tries to address this, so we will try our darndest to make sure he does that.
Yeah, that's how, we were told that's how he's usually pretty,
Okay.
forthcoming, but I don't know if it's just because it's our three little houses, if he can, just like slap it over.
I would also suggest that if you come to the township, if you haven't already done so, and reviewed the modified plans.
Yes.
Before you meet on site, if you've already
Yeah.
reviewed them, that's fine, but
Okay.
just so that you're prepared for the on-site meeting and also the public meeting.
Absolutely. All right.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Anne Marie, can you withdraw your motion then to
What?
approve?
Why don't we make, oh, yes, we did.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can table it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, for the record, Ms. Smith, would you like to withdraw your motion?
Yes, I will, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 8, ordinance number 5, 2022, zoning ordinance amendment. Kristen.
Thank you. This is an amendment to the zoning, section 84-37, which is your I-1 Campus Light Industrial District. It came to our attention that there are certain area and bulk requirements that are superfluous, I would say, and not needed. So we're going to be removing 84-37B10 and B14. The second section is to add a definition for a pole sign. This came at the request of Westchester University. So that's adding a definition to your sign regulations, and then specifically allowing pole signs within the planned university main campus overlay district. Because it's a zoning amendment, we did have to advertise tonight's hearing in the Daily Local News on September 12th and September 19th. I sent a copy of the ordinance to the Law Library and the Daily Local for inspection. The County Planning Commission reviewed the ordinance and issued a letter of August 10th, and your Planning Commission looked at it on July 12th and also on August 9th and recommended that you approve it.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Does the board have any comments or questions about these amendments? No? None? Is there any public comment? None? Okay, can I have a motion to approve, let's see, zoning ordinance number 5-2022?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Tina. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Robin. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Very good. Moving on to number 9, discussion and possible approval of 2022 foreign fire relief distribution to Good Fellowship Ambulance Company, Goshen Volunteer Fire Company, and Westchester Fire Company. Chris.
Madam Vice Chair, before the board this evening is a motion to consider distribution of the township's foreign fire relief. It's received annually. The total amount for 2022 is $221,513.44, which has been deposited into the general fund. There's a memo outlining the distribution. It's been prepared by the Finance Director, Christine Rippey. As in years past, it's been allocated on the same percentage, which is Good Fellowship receiving 12.5%, which would break down to $27,689.18. Goshen Fire Company receiving 50% at $110,756.72, and Westchester Volunteer Fire Company receiving 37.5%, which is $83,067.54.
Okay, thank you. I just have one quick question. So how are these percentages calculated, and why have they remained the same? Is it just sort of we're doing it the way we've done it, and that's pretty much it?
I believe so, yes. I can't answer how these percentages came about because this is the same allocation that's been done for several years, so I don't know where this derived from.
Okay.
I asked the same question last year, and the same response was, that's the way it's always been. So
Was it based on call volume, or was it?
I don't know. Nobody could tell me what the formula was. to determine that GFAC would get 12.5%, Goshen Fire get 50%, and West Goshen, or Westchester Fire get 37.5%. I'd like to say how they figured that out, except to say that's the way it's always been. I'd like to know, I think we need to find out, how these predetermined. This might have some impact on how we determine funding in the future.
Doesn't the money come from the insurance companies?
Yes,
So it's probably something in the statute. Yeah, we can look at that.
it might be.
It's statutorily driven, where the money is coming from and how it's being distributed. So I have a feeling the statute probably dictates
So
that.
it's determined by the state?
Yeah, oh, there's a state statute that
It's
as
governed,
you collect the money.
it's governed under Act 205.
It's just interesting that it never changes. Right? All right, any other comments or questions by the board?
No.
Well, can we just find out more information on that? How they
Yeah, we can
determine
try to
that?
get that. Sure.
Okay.
So I think,
We have to allocate it within 60 days.
correct. I think in the interest of time,
Yeah.
we can the board should consider allocating it. Actually,
October 18th?
apparently, according to our fire marshal who was watching this meeting, the municipality can make the percentage whatever it deems appropriate.
Okay.
Well, now that we have a fire and EMS coalition and we have a lot of different factors I think we're considering, should we table this until October 18th and do a little bit more?
Yeah, I think we should table it and discuss it at our next coalition meeting. Steve?
Our next coalition meeting is after the October 18th
Oh.
meeting. So I would recommend approving the allocation as outlined by the finance director for 2022 and looking at the percentages for 2023.
Yeah.
Okay, I
I'll
agree.
make the motion to
Mr. Chair, I think we have Steve on today.
Yeah, just to give you a little history. One time it was based on zip codes. So the Westchester Fire Department got a large portion of it. Okay, even though Westchester, I believe, covers about 60% of West Goshen Township. So at one time, years ago, they're based on zip codes. And 19380, okay, was a pretty big zip code in the township. So Westchester Volunteer Farmers Relief Association got a fairly good chunk of it. I would say more than 50%, probably. I don't know the exact percentage. And then it was pointed out by Goshen Fire Company that it wasn't equitable. So I believe they come with a 50-50 split. And then the ambulance company got their portion at some point. So I believe that's kind of where it is now, if that makes sense to you.
Thank you, Steve.
Or the other option we can do, since we do have the right to distribute the percentage we want, is to distribute it equally as another option. That would pose.
I think these are all really good questions that we should look into for next year so that we're not making it sort of.
Or I'm saying this year, divide it equally this year, and then look into it to see what percentage we're going to do next year. If you divide it, it's like 72,000.
May I?
Yes, go ahead.
I'll defend the fire side here. We don't have near the expenses on that the fire side has for lead money, so I think a three-way split might not be fair.
Okay.
They definitely have way more expenses on the relief side than we do. We use it to pay for like EMT training when we volunteer. So in total, we bring in about 60,000, 70,000 a year from all our townships. Yes, that's a little low, but I just think a three-way split might be too much. I want to be fair to the fire responders.
Okay, I appreciate
Yep.
that. That's very nice.
And our expenses for 21 were 421,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to give you a rough idea. And also semantics, I don't know if it matters, Westchester Fire Department or company.
If that what?
Westchester Fire Department.
That was my mispronunciation. Sorry. And the one thing to keep in mind as to why the allocations may be drastic, maybe different between Goshen and Westchester Fire Department is that Goshen also provides an EMS service, whereas Westchester Fire Department does not. So that may be a differentiating factor between the two.
I think the difference between Goshen and Good Fellowship is the one that's sort of.
Oh no, I'm talking because it's Goshen Fire Company and Westchester Fire Company. You would think that since they're fire companies, it would be equal, but Goshen does have the basic life support service that they provide to a portion of the township as well.
Okay.
For now, do you think this is a good percentage breakout for this year between Jazz
I mean,
and Steve and Steve.
This is something I'm going to take a look at.
You know, I don't want to set the apple cart, I think it's a good decision.
Yeah.
It's worth the discussion for next year.
For next year, something we can discuss at our coalition.
Yeah. Like I said, at one time, Westchester was getting more than their share, so I think the balance was to split it 50-50, and that's the way it is.
And maybe the final answer will be the same, but I'd like to have that discussion with the coalition just to see everybody's feedback.
And my comment was not a slight towards Westchester Fire Department anyway, it was just pointing out that there's a difference in operations.
Okay, great. So do we need to take any action on this, or should we, I guess we do.
Yeah.
We need to approve it. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the allocation as suggested by our finance department for 2022? Second. Okay. Public comment, additional? No? All in favor? Aye. Oh. Thank you very much for your feedback. It was helpful. Okay, item number 10. Discussion and possible approval of the 2022 pension plan state aid allocation and payment.
Madam Vice Chair, before the board this evening is the 2022 state aid allocation payment for authorization to distribute. This has to be distributed within 30 days of receipt, and the funds are received on September 28th. Christine Rippey, the Finance Director, once again prepared a worksheet that is before the board outlining the distribution of state aid across the township's 3 pension plans. Total amount received is $647,556.46, with the distribution as follows. Police Pension Fund, $149,978.52. Administration and Roads Pension Fund, $367,394.46. And the Sewer Pension Fund of $130,183.50. The total amount of the MMO across the 3 pension funds for 2022 is $1,042,142, and the state aid receipt covers approximately 62% of the MMO.
And the rest we had allocated in our budget.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Any questions?
The total amount received from the state aid was $647,000, and that's divided accordingly. What's the determination, again, is this determined by the state, how the funds will be distributed between the 3 pension plans?
It's determined based on need, cost to administer the pension plans and things of that nature.
Okay, so basically then the township determined then how this was divvied up?
Correct.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the 2022 pension plan state aid allocation and payment?
I'll make that motion.
I'm sorry, I thought this was the second person.
Yeah, just for the motion.
Okay, so you made the motion.
Yeah.
Do I have a second?
I thought it was the second.
Oh, okay.
Ron's a second.
Is there any public comment?
Got that clear?
Yes, sorry about that.
No? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to number 11. Discussion and possible approval of a reimbursement agreement between West Goshen Township and Aqua, Pennsylvania for work associated with the Bullmar Street storm sewer project.
Before the board this evening is a reimbursement agreement for work associated with the relocation of a water main for the Bullmar, that's necessary for the Bullmar Street storm sewer project. We had discussed this briefly at the meeting on September 20th. There's an existing 12-inch water main owned by Aqua that runs along Bullmar Street that is in conflict with the storm sewer pipes outlined for replacement. So the township solicitor prepared a reimbursement agreement outlining that the township's contractor will replace the water main in conflict, and Aqua will reimburse the township for its costs associated with this work, including a proportionate share of paving that will be required. We did receive an executed copy from, at the time, so on September 20th, I wasn't sure when we would be receiving this, but we did receive the signed copy from Aqua on September 22nd, 2022, and I do not believe they had any changes to the version that we drafted.
No, and actually Chris Peterson's office drafted it. They used it from a copy that Aqua had entered with Westtown. So I did not draft it. I made suggested edits to make it more tailored to this particular project. But we sort of knew going in that Aqua was going to accept it because it came from a model that they had presented to a West Town project. So, yeah. I do notice that we need to make sure that they, I don't know if you saw it, but we need to make sure that the copy that came back didn't have the exhibits attached. We need to make sure we attach those and have those for your files.
Okay.
And those were plans prepared by your township engineer who's in charge of this project, Chris Peterson. So.
Okay. But we can approve it
Yes,
tonight.
absolutely.
Without that.
Okay. Yeah, that was what was presented to them. That was really the meat of what they were looking at, is the engineered plans to see exactly what was being done, and then them agreeing that they're going to reimburse you that amount.
Okay. Any questions, comments from the board?
Yeah, very few questions. This 12-inch aqua line, how many properties are being serviced by this aqua line? Do you have any idea?
I'm not sure. Dave, do you know?
Yeah, they'll work, it'll either stay live and they'll go around it and then make a connection, or they can valve it and go isolate that section.
So it won't be down for any length of time is what their game plan is.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how many properties are serviced by it, do you know?
No.
Okay. Any idea for a start date for this?
We're looking at this, well, we're looking at spring, potentially the spring.
All right, spring.
So I know Chris is getting the added bid specifications prepared to go out to bid with anticipation to do the work in the spring. So this project was allocated in the American Rescue Fund budget for 2022. So when the board sees the budget for 2023, this will be carried forward into next year.
Now, the $119,000 that Aqua's going to pay to the township as like a down payment, when will this be paid? At the beginning of the project?
Upon the completion of the paving of Balmar Street,
Well, no,
and the
there's supposed to
receipt
be
of the
100
final cost of such work, township will adjust the estimated cost. So, I don't know.
So they are to pay us $119,000 in a lump sum. I would believe that would be due now.
Should that be
According
stipulated
to
in
this,
the
it's,
agreement?
Yeah, the final cost
When
is what's.
and how?
yeah, it's not quite clear. If you look at the agreement on item number 3 on the first.
Here, tell me what's best for that. I mean, I don't, how does that work, Dave? Would we be?
This is the first one I've done getting reimbursement.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm saying like in terms of when so the township's contractor is going to be doing the work, is that correct? So it will be part of the cost of your bid that you'll be paying that contractor. So it seems like when you have to pay your contractor, you would make a written request to Aqua to pay it to you. I mean, I don't think they're going to want to, it's up to you. I don't think you want to be paid up front right now and just hold on to that. I think it's when you're going to be incurring that cost, you would be asking them to pay that.
I just think it should be included in the reimbursement agreement.
Yeah, we can ask to amend paragraph 3, but where, what is your druthers in terms of when you would like to see that? It seems logical that you want them to pay you when you're incurring that cost.
So what does it mean where it says within 30 days of the receipt of the notice of final cost, Aqua shall remit payment to the township?
So the 119 is just an estimate.
Yeah,
So if it costs if when you put it out to bid, if this particular piece of the project costs $150,000, the 119 is just an estimate. So they're actually going to pay you what your actual cost is.
Okay.
What's
So-
your feedback page on
So we
that?
don't even have it bid yet, so.
Right. We don't really know.
So you would want it, like Kristen said, when your costs are incurred, that's when
Yeah.
you would want the money.
That would make the most sense, and that way we don't, for
Maybe-
some reason, get more than, if we have a contractor come in less, then we have to
Yeah.
reimburse them.
That's
So maybe we try to amend paragraph 3 to just say within 30 days of receipt of your request. And then you can determine when you want to make that request for the estimated cost. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the 119 they talk about in the agreement would be for what you would estimate on the bid.
Right.
If it's more than that after the job's done, you're going to sit down and settle up.
Right.
Finally, so there won't be any monies exchanged prior to that.
So maybe since luckily paragraph 3 is at the bottom of page 1, we can add a sentence to it and not screw up the signature page. Obviously, we need Aqua's consent to change paragraph 3 to clarify that. But then we wouldn't have to, we could keep the signature lines if we get the consent.
I would also like to add, pay within 30 days of receipt of request and in lump sum payment.
Yeah, it does say lump sum. It says including a lump sum payment. It already mentions lump sum on paragraph 3.
Okay.
But, yeah. Okay, so we could add a sentence to the end of paragraph 3 that they will pay within 30 days of written request. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think,
And we'd only have to bring this back to you if that was not acceptable to them.
Right.
so I think the board could entertain a motion to approve it subject to the revision of paragraph 3 as outlined by the township solicitor.
Okay, does somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
All right, great. Is there any public comment? No, Doug? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Item number 12, discussion and possible approval of resolution number 15, 2022, establishing the process and procedures for West Goshen Township in accordance with Act 57 of 2022.
Madam Vice Chair, before the board this evening is resolution number 15, 2022. This resolution would establish policies and procedures for the township in accordance with Act 57 of 2022, which amended the local tax collection law. So under Act 57, the township must enact a resolution for the ordinance implementing the provisions of the new law, which outline procedures for, I don't want to put this, for individuals who purchase the property and receive a notice for delinquent payment. So this would set up those policies and procedures in accordance with the law.
It's only in the instance where somebody purchased a property but did not get notice of the tax bill and therefore would incur late fees and penalties. But if they didn't get the tax bill, it gives them an ability to come and ask for a waiver of those late fees.
That's all this applies to?
That's all it applies to.
Within
Within
Yes.
12 months.
Yep.
It's been 12
Yep.
months. Which happens.
All right.
We had under the law, I believe it was 90 days, it was 90 days in which to enact something, so we are coming up on that deadline.
Okay, so can I have a motion then to approve, where am I? Resolution number 15-2022, establishing the process and procedures in accordance with Act 57. I'll make the motion. Anyone want a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thanks, Tina. Is there any public comment? Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item number 13, discussion and possible approval of resolution number 16-2022, authorizing the submission of a grant application to the PA Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for improvements to West Goshen Community Park.
So before the board this evening is resolution number 16, 2022. This resolution would authorize the submission of a grant application to the PA Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for certain improvements to West Goshen Community Park. This is a special grant round being done by DCNR that's being funded through a variety of sources, which is largely the funding received by the state through the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 and is similar to their Community Conservation Partnership Program. So, Rick, could you bring the plan up? So a few meetings ago, the board had, I believe it was at the June 21st meeting, the board authorized Carroll Engineering to prepare certain plans related to improvements to community parks, specifically improvements to the basketball court, the proposed splash pad, family bathroom renovation, and drainage improvements around the tennis court area. And this was in preparation for a grant application, for a series of grant applications to be submitted this spring. We became aware recently that DCNR is going to have a special grant round. Jamie and I met with Andrew Gilchrist, who is the regional representative for the Southeast region, who reviewed the project. He thought it would be something that would be looked upon favorably for this grant round. Now, it's important to note there's a small amount of money that's available for this grant round, only about $19 million statewide. So it's going to be highly competitive, but we figured that this was a good first shot to look at for these improvements to community park. This would not prevent us from submitting for additional funding through the state. We could not use it as a match requirement for additional state funding, but we could use it as a match component for a county grant.
Could we?
Yes. I believe so, yes.
So this is the first round.
Then the next one would be, the county program opens up in the spring, I believe it opens up like in the winter of this year around December, but those are due at the end of February, and then DCNR, their main C2P2 program opens up in February, I want to say, and those applications are due in April. So we could apply for all three sources of funding to offset this cost, if we're successful with all three.
So hypothetically, we're successful with the first one, does that have any effect on our being successful in the future, like the other ones that we're assigned to, or does it detract from our success, or does that have no effect?
It has no effect. I asked Drew that question when Jamie and I met with him, and I asked him, I said, would this prevent us from applying for additional funding in the spring round? He said, no, we just can't use it as a match towards their requirement.
And how much of the 19 million statewide do we think we would be entitled to for the first round?
Entitled to?
Not entitled.
So generally,
that we would be.
Generally, there's an unwritten cap of about $250,000. So we'd be trying for $250,000. Now, Drew did say to us that there's a distinct likelihood that if you put in for $250,000, they may award a lower amount. So that was where his suggestion to break it into phases came from that I noted in my memo to the board. So he said that, but again, we could then apply for additional funding or other resources to help offset the cost. One thing I had a conversation with Chris Peterson today about the plans. One thing I did want to point out. So when we talk about the drainage improvements to the tennis court that are there, he's proposing to do a rain garden. And one of the things I talked to Chris was I thought this could be a good, and when we do these improvements, I thought this could be a good kind of joint project between the Park and Recreation Board and the Sustainability Advisory Committee to maybe do an educational sign to include as part of there about benefits of a rain garden, what they do, what kind of plantings you could do, things like that. So I think what he's proposed there is very nice for those improvements, and we can incorporate an educational component into the project later on as we go through this.
I love that idea. Or have it be a certified wildlife habitat, now they have that?
Yep.
Really cool. Okay.
So I think these are, I would say these are about 90% is what Chris said in terms of his plans. He specifically did them so that we could submit them for this grant money. So they're in a position that we can use them for this submission.
Great. That's wonderful.
Now, as part of the grant application process to the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, and in your discussion with them, is this resolution part of the grant application process?
Yes.
So it's something they require. So this is something that's specific for this particular grant.
Correct.
Okay.
So any kind of grant that we bring before the board is going to require a resolution because essentially you're authorizing a commitment of certain funds towards it.
And that you're authorizing that you'll be consistent with the terms of their grant program.
Correct. But again, this wouldn't, and if we're going to talk about park planning on the agenda on the next item, this would not preclude us from doing any other grant programs or any other projects that are there.
Perfect. All right. Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 16-2022?
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Robin. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Tina. Is there any public comment? Yes, Doug?
Is there a cost to submit the application?
No. You're talking like an application fee, correct? No, there is not.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Thanks for looking into that, Chris, and doing this. It's great.
Well, I can't take all the credit. We got alert. Chairperson Walsh actually notified us to it, and we started. We got the ball rolling and everything. So he did alert us to it.
Well, thank you, Sean, all the way in the UK. All right. Item number 14, moving right into discussion of park planning initiatives. So yes, we did discuss this at a prior meeting. Do you want to? Yeah.
So one of the items tonight is discussion regarding park planning initiatives. We had talked about, the board had discussed this previously as it related to a request for improvements for Paley Pike Park. So one of the ideas was to take a more holistic approach to our park planning efforts and look at maybe like one, two, or three in our network outside of community park that we could plan for and then maybe submit separate grant applications for it. And talking about this internally, with the goal being to develop a comprehensive approach to prioritizing improvements in the park network. So in order to plan for these improvements, what we think we should do is develop maybe master is the wrong a park recreation and trails open space plan. Not so much a master plan, which really looks at the finer points of what you're trying to do, but more an overall comprehensive approach. Like think about it like you have your comprehensive plan, which looks at the township as a whole, then you have this plan that looks at a specific component of that, and then you have like a master plan that looks at like the finer details of something. So what we've outlined, what Jamie and I have outlined is we could contact a professional planning consultant in understanding what the cost would be to complete this type of plan and use that for budgetary purposes. Jamie does sit on her, and unfortunately she couldn't be here this evening, but she does sit on her Park and Recreation Board where she lives, and did provide us with her idea on what a number would be, but we kind of think it would be better to get something more finer for budgetary purposes. We could then look for grant funding for the completion of this plan. One good example would be the Vision Partnership Program through the county. There are 2 rounds of that, one that opens in the spring and one that opens in the fall. This isn't like, it's not a situation where you could apply for one in the spring and then one in the fall. So if we're not successful in the spring, we can apply in the fall. And then form a committee that would kind of be a cross-section of the township's existing boards and commissions that could be handled, that could oversee this process, or it could be handled through the Park and Recreation Board. Either one of those would be completely appropriate, and that would be at the discretion of the board. And this would be, I think having a plan specific to your parks would be very beneficial for future funding endeavors for improvements to these parks. Because once you have it when you have it in a plan, it is then very helpful when you're doing a grant application to then be able to reference that plan as part of your application.
I'm sure Jamie knows a lot more about this than I do, but is it more advantageous to have this kind of plan be created by a third party like you're suggesting, but you might not be as familiar with sort of the needs of the residents or things that they've been requesting, or is it better to have this done sort of in-house with this committee? Like, what are your...
In my experience, you would want to hire a third party to really develop the overall plan, but they would take input from the community, from this board as to what to include. So it wouldn't be like the board hires a consultant and they just go off and do the plan. There would be a series of public meetings where we would get input from people. There would be public meetings with like the planning body who would oversee it.
It would be kind of like a comprehensive planning process that the township went through.
And I actually suggested this at one of our construction budget meetings to be done, and Jamie kind of looked into it briefly while we were in the meeting, and the good part about it is if you go to a third party, which was what I recommend for the study and assessment, the grant would pay for about 60% of that study.
Okay.
So, and then there's a lot of grant money also.
Have we completely exhausted our restricted parks, and would that even cover the cost of a third party if the board were, would that be allowable?
I think it's for planning purposes. So
I don't know.
We'd have to look into that, but to your question about have we exhausted it, the answer is no in terms of the balance that's available in the fund. I'm wondering if we could utilize that as any kind of match component that we would have to do for, I believe it's a 40% match requirement for the Vision Partnership Program. So we might be able to use that as a match.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we studied assess all the parks by third party, and we talked about prioritizing each improvement, put together a plan with parks and Park and Rec and Friends of West Goshen, budget the money, look for grants, and implement the project with projected timeframes.
Yeah, so I did bring this up, or it was brought up at the last Parks and Rec meeting last week. And I think that there are definitely some members from Parks and Rec that would be interested in serving on a committee, and I'm sure sustainability members would like to go as well. And we have like maybe 2 members from the board, or along with members of staff and then whoever.
So we just looked real quick, you can't use the restricted parks funds towards a planning project.
Okay.
So, but you could use it towards the grant applications, because that's the capital.
Okay.
And we had some discussion about this in the June 21st board meeting, and according to the minutes from that meeting, there was mention of $8,300 for a concept plan. Do you have any idea where that figure came from?
That came from...
Jamie had mentioned that.
I believe that came from Carroll Engineering for their proposal for Bailey Pike Park to do a plan.
Just for the one for the park?
Correct. If I'm just taking an estimate on to do this, my best estimate would be probably be looking at, I would say about $50,000 to complete this plan in consultant time.
Really?
That's what Jamie had mentioned. She had worked on one when we were at our construction meeting, and she thought it was about 70.
I believe that was the price that, because I know where she lives, they just awarded, I think that was the price that they're paying for that, and she scaled it back a little bit.
I think it depends on how robust you want it too.
Correct.
And your grant's going to pay 60% of it, so that's the best part of the study.
If we get the grant.
Now, you don't,
I'm thinking positive.
I can tell you, you don't need it, for a vision partnership, you don't need a consultant selected at the time of application.
Don't you have to use their consultants? You have to use consultants.
You have to use a consultant that they approve,
Right.
but
So it's a certain list.
but there are several planning firms.
No, I know, but you're not, it's not like you can go shopping to whoever you want. It does have to come in and kind of.
But then you can utilize, say, Brandywine Conservancy, Thomas Committa Associates. I'm trying to think of who else they have on there.
I don't know if this Thomas is on there, she would be great for it.
But there's a pretty robust list. And again,
But definitely research consultant. Make sure that they've done a similar type project. I've been representing a couple of municipalities that have been, used ones that are on the list and were not satisfied with it because they didn't really vet that it just wasn't enough dialogue and
So then how
communication
do
in
you do
advance.
that? Like, what's the process for doing that?
well, one of the benefits that we have is that Jamie used to work for the County Planning Commission and administered this program. That's actually how I met her a number of years ago. So I think the first step in this process would be for us to reach out to consultants and get a cost estimate for what it would be to complete, just like a rough estimate that we can use for budgetary purposes, for grant application purposes, and then we can apply for an application sometime in the spring.
Is this what you emailed me and Melanie about earlier today? Or is that something
No,
different?
that was something completely different.
Sorry.
Yeah, according to Jamie, the first cutoff was the end of September, the end of September. So it wasn't a cutoff. When I was discussing this, it mentioned and brought it up as an idea at the construction meeting. She looked at it at that point in time, and we were at the beginning of September. And then it was brought up at the park after I mentioned it.
So I think what we do is we get a budget estimate, put it in our 2023 budget. We plan to apply for a vision partnership grant in the spring.
Just getting a little concerned with spending a lot of money on getting these plans done. I mean, we got $132,000 for stormwater projects, and now we're talking another $50 grand for parks projects. And it's a lot of money being spent on planning. I'd like to see what we can do in-house as much as possible.
Yes, Doug.
Did the Park and Rec Board and some members of the committee just do this ourselves?
I think this is something you want to have a professional do. They have no disrespect to any member on any of our volunteer boards, they do an excellent job, but I believe you want to have a professional do something like this because this is their expertise. They would help guide this process, but you really want someone, if you want to be successful at it in the future, you want someone who has the experience right.
When they did this 30 years ago, it was done by a third party. And that's the last time the study was done of all the parks.
The last time a parks plan was done was early 1990s, I believe.
What else does the parks plan take into consideration when planning for parks? Does it take into consideration things like plantings and
improvements too?
Any kind of improvements.
Who did it in the 90s for us?
I have no idea.
We can't even find the
We
plan.
can't find the hard copy of the plan. All I know is Mr. Lear has mentioned to me that the last time a plan like this was done was in early 1990s, but no one has a copy.
So someone did it for us
Mhm.
at that time.
That's generally the way it's done.
All right, I think we have some direction.
Yep. And good plan.
Okay. All right. Item number 15, discussion and possible authorization to advertise a proposed ordinance to establish a volunteer service tax credit program in accordance with Act 172 of 2016.
before the board this evening is discussion and possible authorization to advertise an ordinance to establish a volunteer tax credit program in accordance with Act 172 of 2016. At the August 2nd meeting, the board did review a request from the Westchester Fire Department to consider the adoption of such an ordinance. And this law permits the municipalities to enact ordinances to offer real estate or earned income tax credits to active members of volunteer fire companies and nonprofit EMS agencies through this program. So as follow-up to that, I researched a variety of municipalities who have a similar type of program in Chester County. I did find eight. I contacted the managers of all 8 of those municipalities and heard back from 5 of them. I did not receive, just for the record, I did not receive responses from West Whiteland, East Coventry, or Franklin Township. So just in the 5 that I heard back from, some of the questions were about administrative issues and how this would be run. No municipality reported any administrative issues with this program. They did note that the number of volunteers would be minimal. However, as I look at the list of participating municipalities, the vast majority are significantly smaller than we are. Some had either just a real estate component or real estate and earned income tax component, and they did, all respondents did note a requirement that the respective fire company certify that the requester meets the qualifications for this program. So I don't see any administrative issues with enacting an ordinance of this type. Then Mr. Hellman also received some information from individuals in other parts of the state. Those were summarized in a memo to the Board of Supervisors. However, again, in reviewing that, there were really no issues that were found. Some consistencies that I found in looking at several of these ordinances are that the amount for the earned income tax credit is generally capped around $500 per year. And the real estate tax credit is generally capped at around 20%, which is what's allowed under Act 72. Now, Chief Pelna did alert me that there was a new law that was enacted that allows the municipality to go up to 100% of the real estate tax credit. However, my recommendation to the board would be to start with the 20% cap, see how successful it is, see what kind of an impact there might be, and then since this is an ordinance that can be amended in relatively short order, we can make changes accordingly. Now, in terms of the financial impact, we did analyze that based on the number of volunteers who would be eligible for this based on feedback from the fire and EMS companies. We're estimating that the impact of the caps that are outlined would be relatively minimal. We're looking at an estimate of about $30,500. On the EIT side, that was 0.3% of the projected earned income tax revenue in the 2022 budget. And we used an estimated assessed value of approximately $200,000 based on a 20% cap, and we came up with about a $5,000 financial impact.
I just want to add, this was discussed at the coalition and also an article, a survey of Pennsylvania Emergency Medical Services Agencies conducted by the Center for Rural Pennsylvania was released in July. And they said that according to the survey, one of the major tools for retention was providing tax credits. And that was published in the state of Pennsylvania. So it sounds as if it's working. If nothing else, it's for an appreciation of work that's done, even if the recruit's minimal. Every little bit helps, as the coalition indicated. This is one tool that they were excited about. I think they feel as though it will work in their organization. They did provide actual numbers to the employees that it would apply to, so we can have accurate numbers relative to what it's going to cost the township.
A couple of the other recommendations that I noted in the memo to the board, and again, I want to thank Westchester Fire Department, Good Fellowship Ambulance Company, and Goshen Fire Company for providing feedback to all of us on this draft ordinance, because they did look at it and provide us with some comments that were included to the board. One of the things that I would recommend including, because I saw this in a number of the ordinances that I looked at, was to make it only eligible to residents who volunteer for the companies that service the municipality. So you want to really, my thought is you want to be benefiting those companies like Westchester, Goshen, Good Fellowship, who actually are providing the service to the community. And that was what we discussed at the Fire and EMS Coalition.
As opposed to?
As opposed to just leaving it open-ended.
Okay. So, a couple of questions from me. That's interesting that they just passed a legislation allowing you to go up to 100%. So, of the municipalities that you reached out to, were they saying that this was working?
Yes.
That they were retaining people, that they were attracting people because of this?
They didn't say that it was working in terms of retaining, but they hadn't heard that it was caused, that there were any sort of departures or anything. They didn't, no one reported a negative impact.
So the goal of this really is to attract new volunteers and to keep people there.
And retention.
So my question is, if the municipalities that we've talked to, they're saying administratively that it's fine, that it's working,
Right.
but they're at 20% probably,
Correct.
that maybe if we upped it to something more like 50% starting out, that it might actually be very enticing to new volunteers. Maybe not go up to the 100, but instead come out kind of strong, saying that this is something that we are really getting behind. And
Yeah, I like that. I'd like your feedback on that too. I mean, we're at a critical point right now where we've lost so many volunteers. So any little bit we can give to help in fire and EMS, I think would be a good thing.
what do you think about that, John?
Well, I see the guys in the room, they're all from the fire companies and EMS, all nod their heads, yeah.
I don't see anybody
More is
saying
better.
no.
But I get that.
Well,
You know,
just-
but on the other side of the table here, we have to look at the $30,500 that you estimate the total impact of the township. That was based on the 20%
Right.
on the real estate.
That's assuming
So-
that, how many people are taking advantage of?
They all reported there was 51 possible
Yeah, these are actual
individuals
numbers.
who would qualify.
That's true, but other townships only sometimes have one person that's taking advantage of it.
Right,
so.
that's true. We're looking at the total maximum possible impact, probably less than that. We don't know.
So given if everybody were to sign up, that's what the total maximum impact would be.
Yeah,
The
20%.
likelihood that everyone's gonna take advantage of it is probably pretty low, given what we're seeing in other municipalities, though. I think the question really is, as far as service and attracting volunteers and retaining people, if we're having an issue with that, that if we're gonna do something like this, that we do it in a way that actually means something to the volunteers.
Substantial.
Yeah, substantial.
You're also going, you probably will also see a situation where you have volunteers who are able to take advantage of just the earned income tax credit and not the real estate tax credit, because they might rent their property and wouldn't be eligible for the real estate tax credit.
And also if they don't live here,
Correct.
but is that the
Then they don't
I don't
get
know,
it.
I don't know, yeah,
And I don't get it.
right.
Yeah, 50% I think would be viable.
Yes, I do too. I like that amount. I agree with that amount.
And the other question that I had was, how do we, as a township, ensure that each company is certifying that each individual is meeting those requirements to apply?
Well, that's pretty strict requirements, and the chief is actually required to keep those logs. And we talked about in the coalition, and I don't want to speak for you, Steve, but you indicated it was not a burden by any means from an administrative standpoint.
Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, there has to be a resolution that's adopted annually by the board, correct?
Right.
So you would have to certify that they meet this criteria. Steve is certifying that they meet the criteria specified in the ordinance, and then that comes before the board, you adopt a resolution, and then that essentially verifies what Steve is saying.
And then I'll provide the backup for, the individual first has to apply, they'll send us a letter of intent, and then we'll put it against all of our data. I'll certify it, or my designate, and then your team will certify it. So if I can say, I applaud you guys even to look into this to begin with. So you're leading the charge, at least in our coverage area, so we can't thank you enough even considering it. And then to take it this far, this is huge, and we really, truly do appreciate it.
Would this be Exhibit A, would be the resolution that would have to be passed annually by the board? That gives us the qualifying volunteer criteria?
Yeah, sorry, it's been a while since I looked at this, but the qualifying volunteer language is in a specific section of the ordinance, and it's not completed yet, because this was still in a draft form.
Right.
So qualifying volunteer shall be defined as a volunteer who has attained an annual participation score of, and it was blank, because I think we're still looking for input in this Exhibit A. Again, still making sure that this is the qualification, that they, since 2017, where the conversation sort of ended was we need to go back to those companies and say, okay, what do you use to determine if somebody's a qualifying volunteer? And so I don't know if this Exhibit A was vetted with them and this is what they're all agreeing to use to say, okay, this is the procedure that they're going to follow to say that they are a qualifying volunteer. But as far as the participation score, that's something you guys need to determine.
Can we determine that tonight?
Here's,
We've already had some discussion on it.
Well, Chris got responses from them on this particular issue, right?
yes.
Both from Steve and also from Grant.
No, all the responses are.
We have some feedback on that new to this. Just the way we deploy our volunteers, they really cover shifts. Our call volume is 3-4 times what the fire side is. So I'd like to just consider the qualifying volunteer adding like a set number of hours they contribute in a year as well. And that can be specified in the exhibit as well. But we have volunteers that come in 24 hours a month. That's a really active volunteer, but they may only respond to 1 or 2% of our total annual call volume. So we need to balance our high call volume against the fire side, and hours is really a better way to do that for us. So
It seems like each fire and EMS company has their own way that they have to define what an active volunteer would be. So we always have to break it down according to each individual fire company. Grant had a whole long list of all those who serve who should be considered as active firefighters, which might not be necessarily those who are responding to a fire call. It could be, maybe an officer of the organization, or maybe even somebody serving as a volunteer for the Friends of Goshen Fire, who run the Goshen Fair every year. So that's a question that needs to be resolved.
Here's what I'm thinking as I'm listening to the discussion. I'm thinking it might be beneficial, since Kristen has to draft this, is maybe Kristen and I meet with Steve, Chaz, and Grant, and probably Ted, maybe Ted as well, since he's been involved in the discussion too. And we all and whoever else from the fire company might be appropriate, we put our heads together, we figure out a formula that works for everybody, and we come back to the board with a final version, with a complete final version of the ordinance.
I think what John said is accurate. I think it's up to each fire company or fire company to determine what is your criteria to say somebody is active and participating sufficiently that they would be entitled to this. I don't think you guys care, right? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think as long as the respective fire companies are determining that they are sufficiently involved, they can be considered an active member, then you're going to support them to get the credit. I would think.
But I think there's a way. I think there's a way amongst us, because we've kind of been working on this jointly as a team through the EMS coalition and different discussions, that I think there's a way we can come up with something that may not be perfect, but works for everybody.
Do you want to put this on the agenda for the coalition, or do you want a separate meeting on that? Because we're all together anyway at the end of the month. Unless, you guys are busy too. It's an extra meeting.
Yeah, either works for me.
Again, that's after our next board meeting.
So I think we delay authorization of the advertisement until we can get this question answered.
Yeah, there's other things left in the ordinance.
Because Chaz, I know you're out the majority of October anyway, up until the coalition meeting. So you're kind of tight. Not to speak for you, but I would like to get this done. If we could get it done before the 18th. If we can get it done before the 18th meeting, that would be great. But if you can't fit it in, then we'll do it with the coalition.
I can certainly send suggested wording by email for sure before the 18th. So.
Okay. Would it be advantageous to meet live or Zoom if you can't?
Yeah, it can be by Zoom.
Well, you're traveling with Chaz, so that won't work for you.
It'll have to be by Zoom. That's all.
Yeah. Are you guys okay with that, so that we can get this rolling by the 18th?
Yeah.
And if Kristen, is it enough time for you? to do the ordinance? Is that a?
I mean, there's blanks in the ordinance, so I need you guys to fill in the blanks.
No, in order to advertise, we would have to have.
We need to know.
We would have to have, in order to have it done by the 18th, we'd have to run the legal ad by the 11th. There's not enough time between now and the 11th to get everything finalized.
Is there some kind of, I don't know, cap on how long this can take? Because I'm kind of thinking that maybe we should work through these things a little bit.
Well, you want it to, if you want to implement, you should implement it before next year when your real estate tax bills are going to go out.
Yeah.
So that those don't go out till March.
Okay.
The real estate tax bills go out in March. I don't know, the EIT is.
So I think,
But let me just, hold on, I found something here. I looked at the amendment that we prepared back in 2017. The act does enumerate a list of activities that the fire and the EMS chiefs and supervisors must refer to when determining if a volunteer is eligible to participate in the program. So there are standards you have to be following. So I was wrong when I said they could decide on their own. There's specific standards they have to look at, and that's where we got the Exhibit A. We were looking at the act as far as what you have to look at to say, do you qualify?
so I think our deadline in which to have something adopted and on the books is probably your second meeting in December. That's the way it's enacted for 2023. So I think that's your target deadline. So I think a good course of action might be, we set up a meeting with the respective companies, with Kristen, we finalize it, and we can get it done before the second meeting in December. That gives us plenty of time to get all the questions answered.
Okay, so you don't want to do it with the coalition while we're all together?
We can, if Kristen is out.
Well, and we also don't have all board members present, and I do want to give Sean an opportunity to weigh in sort of on the allocation. I brought up the 50%. John was having some concerns, and let's talk about that. But yeah, I think we're going to have this out at least hopefully before the end of the year.
That's what we say, our coalition meeting at the end of this month. So that'll give us time, we're all together, and then as we discuss at the next meeting.
I think that's good. That's good.
We'll take our time to work for the issues.
That could probably be the entire agenda.
I know, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great.
And Kristen can be at our coalition.
Oh, good, okay.
Yeah, so at that meeting, are you going to talk about the amount of the exemption? Because I know that's still, Chris has given you some recommendations in terms of what the cap would be and what percentage. Is that going to be further discussed? Okay.
I think we're going to discuss all the
Okay,
facts.
so I had done a memo to Casey August 4th, 2022. I can't be right, that date must be wrong. I must have redated it. It must have redated when I printed it. But we'll make sure you guys get this, because these same considerations need to be thought through and discussed. So we'll,
I gave that when I think I might have included that in the packet where this first came up, but I could be wrong. If not, I'll circulate.
yeah, because if you go back to the last page, it has considerations for you to think about. Those are the same things we still need to think about, so we'll get this to you.
Got it.
What's the game plan
We
is
should
for
also
that
send that
coalition?
out to those guys too, that.
Sure.
That memo.
I will do that.
What's the game plan is for talking about discussion at the next coalition meeting? And if there's any further discussion after that, with Kristen that needs to be done, then go ahead and do it.
Right, we're going to fill in all the blanks on this.
And Kristen did say she was available to attend the October 27th coalition meeting, and that can kind of cut out some of the delay.
Yeah.
So we can get this, so thinking about a timeline, if we can then get it, we can get everything hammered out at the October 27th meeting.
Right.
We're probably looking,
Adopt in November, because you could come to your November 1st meeting, you could authorize advertisement, you could adopt it in your November meeting.
well,
The second.
Yeah, second.
no.
Fine. Only the 7 we got. Doesn't need to go anywhere else other than you guys.
They want to authorize it for advertisement in the first meeting in
First meeting in November,
Oh,
or adopt it
yeah,
second
yeah,
meeting in
yeah,
November.
okay.
Yeah. So
We'll
by
see.
December, beginning of December, it could be adopted and finalized, advertised, implemented. Based on the blanks and all the work that we have to do, do you think an hour's enough?
I think this one will run push through, so. If you need more than an hour.
Are we going to sit with Steve for more than an hour?
Yeah.
Okay, I just so want to allocate the meeting.
Yeah.
I'll do an hour if you think
Yeah.
it's enough time for us to get that done. Okay.
That'll essentially be the agenda
That's
for the
what I'm
meeting.
saying, that will be the agenda. Yeah.
There'll be plenty to
Maybe
talk
an hour
about.
and a half,
Are you sure, Steve?
Yeah. Maybe an hour.
Okay, just checking. All right.
All right, great. Okay, moving on to item 16. Discussion and possible appointment of the following individuals to certain volunteer boards and committees of West Goshen Township. So Scott DeLone for the Sustainability Advisory Committee and Stephen Lyons for the Historical Commission.
Yes, and I'm going to speak on behalf of Steve Lyons. I don't know why he didn't come today, but hopefully we can maybe push it to the 18th, if that's possible.
Sure.
Yeah, because he was supposed to be here with this thing from Mr. DeLone, who's one of your sustainability advisory committee members now.
Yes.
At least that was the idea, was
Scott,
that
was he invited?
you were going to appoint them.
Did he know about it?
Scott knows that he was appointed.
I know, but
Well,
was-
by
he
the
was-
committee,
he was
he was,
recommended.
yeah, he was.
So do we want
Yeah, so maybe we can just table that for the 18th. I don't know if that's too much.
to push both of these to the 18th and invite them to attend?
Yeah, I'm going to reach out to him. and make
Is
sure.
really that's necessary? I mean, is that your feeling? It should be
I don't,
necessary?
did they accept, so I know that Scott accepted the recommendation by the SAC. I don't see him, you know, I think that we could push through that. I don't know what Stephen, if he wanted to be here or,
No, I think he was basically told he didn't have to be here.
yeah, okay.
I had a lot of discussion with him about his background and all that. And it was also,
That's right.
all those members on the Historical Commission supported his appointment.
Yeah, I think we can just push through and appoint them and also invite them to the next meeting.
Unless you feel there's any questions that need to be asked.
No, because we interviewed.
I just
Yeah.
wanted him to be here
Yeah.
so he could be appointed here.
Oh. Oh, you mean like as a ceremony kind of?
Well, that's what happens, is that when you make an appointment, that's what they want. They want to make sure that he's involved. And like today, he didn't show up. But I can reach out to him by phone, see what's going on.
And he did attend, the report I got from the chair of the Historical Commission is he attended the Historical Commission meeting.
I don't think that they think they need to be here.
That's what
Yeah,
I think.
in my
I
opinion,
don't think we
it's
invited
more-
him.
No,
He
no,
would go to that meeting.
I think
Okay.
it's more,
Historical Commission.
in my opinion, it's more valuable that they're in attendance for the board, the committee that they're going to work for, so that they can kind of see the dynamics and things, than necessarily coming to the appointment meeting of the governing body. That's just my
Okay.
opinion.
So
Once
just-
we interviewed him.
Just to run through this very quickly, so Scott DeLone was recommended by the Sustainability Advisory Committee. He came to our meetings. We got a chance to talk to him. Currently he's a physics teacher, but he has a very impressive background in teaching. I think he's going to bring a lot to the Sustainability Committee, so I'm happy to support Scott's appointment. So should we do these separately?
Yes.
Okay, so I will make a motion to appoint Scott DeLone to the Sustainability Advisory Committee with a term that expires on January 1st, 2024.
I will second that motion.
Okay, any public comment or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and is there a motion to approve Stephen Lyons, who, I pull up his resume here, performed some, I'm not very,
Yeah,
definitely,
yeah. So, Steve has a very, yeah, he's very robust. So I'm just going to go through some of his core competencies. He came to the Historical Commission on several opportunities when he wanted to have more information. He's actually very interested in historical preservation, and he's been already very effective in working with the rest of the Historical Commission. So,
excellent.
doesn't need to be here today.
You're going to make a motion?
But I'm going to call maybe 2 days from now. Just so
Would
we
you like to
know.
make the motion?
You made it. Yeah, I'll make the motion.
And I'll second it.
Thank you.
All
Thanks,
right.
John.
Any public comment?
I just had a conversation with him, and he's had several important historical sites which he has spent his own time looking into, like the Shiloh AME West Town. It's a historic black church of which there are 123 souls buried, including 13 of the United States colored troops. Also, he's done a lot of work with the Foresight property, so he spent a lot of time. He's originally from this area, moved back. He's there with his mom, now, but he spent a lot of time in a lot of the areas that have a lot of history in our township, and he spent a lot of time looking into them. So I think he'd be a real asset to the commission.
Great. Wonderful.
I grew up with him.
Do you? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Good guy, okay, there we go. Enough said. Good
All
guy.
in favor?
Aye.
Item number 17, discussion regarding the placement of the Tree City USA sign and plaque for West Goshen Township. I'll talk about this, Chris. I'll just introduce this. I don't think we need to actually take any action tonight, but I wanted to bring it to the attention of the board because we finally received our Tree City signage from the Arbor Day Foundation. And so we received a plaque that's going to be hung in this building, like an indoor plaque. And then we received an outdoor sign that now we need to.
Oh, we did get two.
We did get two.
We did get two. I thought we only got one. Okay.
Okay, so we have two signs. And we need to talk about the placement of, and so we talked with the sustainability committee about where they'd like to see the sign. Some of them said the community park, but I think after some discussion, we also have agreed that putting it in a place that gets a lot more traffic, like in front of the township building, might be better.
Especially with the new signage, which is awesome.
Yes, so if the board supports putting the Tree City sign in front of the township building, that can be one place that we put the one. And then if we have a second, either community park or somewhere else. I know that some places, some townships, when you drive in and they have the sign that says welcome to wherever, they have their Tree City sign right there, so that immediately when you're coming and crossing the border into the township, you see it. So there's some places we could do that, either when you're first entering the township.
So this one is going to just be a plaque somewhere on a glass.
That'll be downstairs or
Downstairs,
upstairs.
okay. And then this, we got two of.
Yes.
So one will definitely be the township building.
One will definitely be in the township building.
And the second one, I hate to just pick one part because we have so many.
Well, yeah.
Wouldn't seem fair, so I would think, I like your idea of where West Goshen sign, you're walking to West Goshen.
We also have many places where you drive into West Goshen, so where you put it, you could put it between here and West Whiteland, put it between here and East Goshen, you could put here and Westchester.
Put it at the wall, everybody goes into the wall on West Goshen. You want good visibility.
That's true, I want Westchester Pike.
Yeah.
So we just need to decide where we want that second sign to go.
Yeah, we got a big sign there on Westchester Place saying we're looking at West Goshen Township.
Oh, that's true, that's in the medium strip, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Is there any reason why we only got two? I mean, could we get more than just two?
I don't know.
We could ask.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean,
We have to reapply this year, so we could ask, like to our
Yes.
annual renewal, so we could probably ask as part of that.
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of locations where this would seem to be appropriate. I mean, why not get four of them, you know? I mean, spread them all around.
I think a good first starting point would be on Bailey Pike and Westchester Pike.
I agree.
Given the traffic.
Yeah, I like that there.
All right.
We could put one at the sign, the Welcome to West Goshen sign, and maybe the other one in front of the township building.
Well, you have a lot of signs between 5 Points and the ramp, 202. Nobody sees the school bus sign up there because there's so many signs. You don't really notice it until you're standing out there. There's a lot of signage right behind you out there.
So what are you saying? That it's going to be too clustered?
I would think, if we were kicking around the sign for me, we were thinking, like, Pottstown Pike coming into the township, South High Street coming into the township, Westchester Pike, Fairleigh Pike, where you're coming in.
How many fingers you got there?
Well, we got a lot of signs in this town.
Yeah.
So Westchester Borough has theirs on Pottstown Pike going into the borough.
We could put it,
On the other side of the road.
we could put it up toward the northern border,
We could?
up past Park Road.
Yeah, at my house.
Good? Yeah. We have two.
Isn't Park Road where it becomes West Goshen?
Shortly after, just after.
Yeah.
It's right past the, that,
The new development that just went in is right on the border.
but is that in West Goshen? Is it?
The new development, I can't think of the street.
The one on the left is.
The old Heritage
West
Salad.
Goshen.
Laurel Ridge.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's right
That's
on the
West
line.
Goshen?
West Goshen, yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And then we jumped down,
Yeah, because I live in that neighborhood there, and my development is split, and the line goes diagonally through my development.
and then we pick up behind the briquette.
That's what I was thinking of, the briquette. Is that West Goshen?
No, Brickhead is West White.
But that development there, the
Yeah,
one lot's
right
West White
behind
and the
it.
other 7 are West Goshen.
Oh, wow.
So it's, they literally
So it's
got
right there.
diagonals across.
Yeah, I mean, it can go there.
I mean, I would think, the main
You should
state
look
road
at
is
the map,
coming
your
in.
sustainability committee, and look at all the different.
Yeah, we will, yeah.
There-
There's a lot of places to put it. We'll pick some.
So there were just
We have two
suggestions,
times.
there was no finalization that they
From the
agreed to.
Just the same one?
We talked about Paoli Pike
And the-
and one of the parks, or if we had a second one.
I hate to put it up parks. It's not fair, we have so many parks.
Sure.
Is it a sign that can be moved?
No, it would be
Yeah,
a street sign.
I didn't know if it could be moved.
I mean, in theory, yes, it could be moved, but
That's how like it's
not easily.
well traveled in West Goshen.
I do think there should be one at the township, just because
I would, if that's the case, I would put it on 5 points out here.
you would put it on 5.
I would put it on 5 points. There's so many signs out there that nobody sees them.
Yeah.
5 points would be okay.
Like right near the intersection.
Yeah.
Or,
Corner?
yeah, somewhere down by our second entrance.
I think that'd be good.
Yeah. Yeah, because everybody goes in there. Thinking what?
I don't like it.
You don't like it?
No. I don't think it's special enough.
Yeah.
I really feel like it needs to be like on the border or like right in front on that corner. But that's just my opinion, so.
How about out here by the West Goshen Township sign out here on Pill? Somewhere in that area.
Like our new sign?
That's what I was
Right,
thinking.
by the new sign?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. That's what I wanted.
That's kind of what I pictured if we were gonna
I
put
mean, you
it.
can put it out there, but people aren't gonna see it. Because
Okay.
there's so many signs in there. There's 2 sets of signs for 202. There's a school bus sign. There's a mess of signs right out here that you don't see. You blank in between them. I mean, we can put it out there.
But the only sign
But
on
you're not
our
gonna get, it's not gonna be a prominent sign.
No.
Well, it's kind of associated with the, our West Goshen official, marquee sign. That would be the advantage of that. But, should the sustainability committee weigh in on this?
Yeah.
You guys kind of led the charge here, right?
They only thought that we had one sign. We only thought we had one. And then we all said, well, if you're gonna put it somewhere, like how can you pick one part? You're gonna put it in front of the township building because it's fair.
With the idea of just get a few more maybe next year. But let them make the recommendation. We can, go from there. I wouldn't care.
Okay, great. If the board doesn't care, then we'll figure it out. Long story short, okay. All right, good.
So I guess we'll put the plaque in the building and we'll wait on the other signs.
Yeah,
Okay.
just a little bit longer.
Just take a look, the next time you're here today, take a look out front.
I think Dave's suggestion is good for the whole committee to sort of, when you're driving around at the entrance points, to sort of look what else is out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And see where we can put it. Okay, sounds good. All right. Item number 18, discussion and possible authorization of a flu shot clinic for West Goshen Township employees. Chris?
So we had done previously a flu shot clinic for township employees and other individuals covered under the township's medical insurance coverage. And in the past, this was hosted by the Delaware Valley Health Insurance Trust. However, they have advised us that they're no longer continuing these on-site clinics. So Jennifer Latzer, our HR director, did contact CVS about administering a similar clinic to the township. However, there would be a cost associated with this, and we have to guarantee a minimum number of participants, I'll say. So there are a few questions to consider if we're going to do this. Should it be open to people that are not covered under our insurance, who essentially receive waivers of coverage, because we do have some people who do that. What happens with missed appointments, like are we going to absorb the cost of that, and can we really meet the minimum required for CVS? And looking back at the history, we didn't really meet the minimum that was required when it was through the health trust.
I was going to say, how many people have taken advantage of the flu shot clinic?
Less than 30. And then we have to do the cost of that.
Yeah.
No shows, we have to do.
Well, where else can you go to get a flu shot?
I'm not CVS.
You go to CVS.
Yeah.
You go to
You can go
Acme,
anywhere.
Acme, Junction.
I think if the health insurance, if Delaware Valley Health Trust was still doing this like they did last year. I think it's a no-brainer.
It's nice
We
to just have
continue
it, yeah.
But I think given the fact that they've sort of stepped out of doing this and we have a CVS, a block away, a block away.
And Acme.
And Acme and.
Rite Aid does it.
Rite Aid, we Rite Aid.
I think we answered our own question.
Exactly.
I would never know.
As long as the employees are upset about it.
Yeah, I mean, I would only consider this a township if it was inaccessible and hard to get, and that's not the case. So I don't vote for this.
Not this year. We're gonna see that stuff.
Township employees want this?
I'm signing up for accounting on Thursdays.
So to you, it's no big deal.
Okay.
There's so many places to get it.
Yeah, okay. Do you agree?
Right?
No, I agree. It sounds like it's something that's
Township doesn't need
not going to
burn
go
costs.
All right. We're almost at the end. Item number 19, approval of the bills to be paid for the general fund, sewer revenue fund, waste recycling fund, and the capital reserve fund. Any questions about the bills, or can I get a motion to approve the bills?
I will make a motion.
I'll second. Any public comment, discussion? All in favor?
I'll just ask one quick question. There's a charge for Carroll Engineering Park improvements for $15,127 for project 220365. Is that for the West Goshen Community Park?
That was the plan that we looked at earlier.
Yeah. Sorry. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? I know. I'll make the motion to adjourn. Second? Anyone in a second?
I think I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much,